didn't even realize that I was in a
Bubble.
yeah.
Hi, everyone. This is Cindy. It has been a very, very long time since we've had our last Close Encounters recording. It's now 2024. It's been a crazy, crazy year, 2023. And we want to come back with new faces, new materials. And without further ado, I have my new team. I think Nick is familiar to a lot of people, but we've got Zan and we've got Annie. So why don't everyone say a quick hello, introduce yourself and your name, and then we will get right on to what we are going to be talking about today.
Maybe I'll go first.
Okay.
Well, Cindy, you're absolutely right. It has been a very crazy year, but we're happy to be back. My name's Nick. I am an associate artist manager at InPulse Creatives, but I also was helping out with the Close Encounters videos, and we had a lot of fun with our previous guests on the show. And I'm happy that we get to be here again with you right now.
Hi, I'm Annie, and I'm a violinist and content creator, and I'm a new intern here at InPulse Creatives, helping out with social media and other stuff.
Hi, this is Zan. Just graduated and got my piano degree. Right now I'm doing media management. Yeah, I'm also a new intern here. Happy to be here.
Well, everyone is a music major, which is great, which leads us to our conversation today. It's this question of to clap or not to clap. I think it's the age-old question in people going to concerts, whether it's existing classical music lovers or someone who is new to this art form. It's an important discussion. You have tried and true hardcore classical music goers, and even as musicians, and I want your take on this, is like, do you clap in between movements, or when do you clap? I think normally if you're not going to a classical music concert, you clap whenever the hell you want, right?
Absolutely.
And when did this rule start it, right? Like, I don't think Mozart wrote pieces and expected them not to clap. They really only came around the 19th century. And I think because there was this whole thing where they wanted to clap, but then it ended up that audiences were talking, and then they had, and concert promoters were putting people in place to clap. And then it became like this thing of like, well, then this is all fabricated. And that's why, and like with the 19th century composers, they had a bit of an up in arms about it. And so that's when they decided, well, then we need to put a bit of a rule into it. And now you read articles all over, and then there's, quote unquote, like even Emily Post, the etiquette. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Emily Post, but she's this very famous woman personality who talks about like etiquettes. What are your thoughts about it? Like, maybe as a musician first.
I mean, I could go first. I didn't mention before in my intro, maybe I should have, that I'm also a pianist. So I do have experience on stage. I remember there's this one concert last year when I was giving my master's performance, or like my master's diploma performance. And I was playing the Scriabin Sonata number 1. And I was so thrown off because after the first movement, like half the audience clapped. And I don't know if it's because I played that well or because they just had no idea where to clap. But it threw me off so much because at the end of the second movement, I expected that they were going to clap again. And the thing is, you're technically not supposed to stop between the second and third movement because it's supposed to happen right after. And the thing is, I was just so worried that I actually fumbled the first couple of measures in the third movement where I completely missed a couple of octaves in the left hand. And it made it for a much more chaotic ride than it should have been because I was just thinking, like, are they going to clap? Are they going to clap? No, I need to start right away. And then I started on the complete wrong note. I mean, me personally, I think that, there's nothing wrong with clapping between movements. Of course, I know we're trained that we shouldn't, but I understand why people think that we shouldn't. Mainly because it's good to hear the entire piece in its duration without any interruptions, right? So I feel like that's where that idea came from, is just to hear everything without any interruptions whatsoever.
Yeah, I totally agree. But like, I don't think people who came to the concert know how the movements are connected, not even me. So I feel like it's not their fault to clap in between, but I do think that's like a huge element that affect me as a performer, that's like interrupt the flow that I'm performing. I went to Jazz Seven Consider last month, and then I was completely shocked by the way that they clap at a jazz performance, that they clap whenever they want.
Mm-hmm.
It's like totally spontaneous. I was like, oh my God, we're doing like whatever, whenever we want. So that's kind of quite a bit of shock, like comparing to going to Carnegie Hall.
You should go to a metal show. That'll really throw you off.
Literally.
I totally agree with everyone. Like, it's really frustrating because I'm a violinist as well, right? I feel like though it happens so much, like at this point, like whenever it does happen that they clap between movements, I'm just like, okay, like it's kind of cute, like there they go again. I have actually never done this for my own recitals, but my friend who was a pianist, I remember he was performing like all the Chopin pieces, maybe not all of them, but like a bunch of etudes, a bunch of mazurkas, whatever. And he wrote in the program very clearly, like, don't clap between every single one. Just wait.
Oh, that's
till the end.
obnoxious. I'm sorry. That's obnoxious.
Yeah, agree.
That is really, really obnoxious.
Did it work?
Oh yeah, it did.
There we go.
I am not a professional musician, even though I grew up playing the piano myself. And I'm always on the opposite end, right? Like I'm always sitting there observing what everyone is responding to. And you have people that come to concerts that are not trained in classical music or who don't understand it. And so in a way, there's this other effect of they're just showing their appreciation. And like you said, you know, many people don't know where the movements are. Like I don't, you know, like I'm not completely familiar with all the repertoires either, whether it's the piano, the violin, or unless it's the big war horses or repertoires that are very well known. All the other ones, I would have no idea. And like you said, some of them have just very minimal pauses. Some of them are going directly from second movement to third movement. And I could challenge the artist on stage to say that, well, you should be very focused and not be affect on your performance and what you're doing on stage. And you should, no matter what happens, you should not be affected by the audience. Right. And that's where I'm coming from. And I don't know if there is a happy medium. Maybe it's a bit of the artist trying to understand that you're going to have audiences coming from all walks of life. We're in a business where classical music is already considered a dying genre, and we want to encourage new audiences. And does this kind of expectation and these little rules that we put and impose on people will put people off that could potentially want to come and enjoy an evening of classical music that they would have never have heard of?
I totally agree, because when I was in my college, that we opened up some like monthly concert that's like open to the public. So there is a large communities near our university that are just like children, and then like they just like bring children to the concert. You can imagine having like 20 kids at a concert, and I got so used to like when children like clap or like yell at each other, or like the water bottle thing, they just like drop in the middle of your performance. That's like, I just like, got trained to not ignoring that, but like knowing that's the potential element that's going to happen in the concert. And I feel like when you know this is a concert facing to the public, that you kind of adapt to that, because I'm not nervous at performing. So I got so locked in that like whatever happens doesn't really affect me.
I always am, you know, especially nervous when I have to play by memory, of course, right? Especially when I first start, like the first couple of minutes is totally crucial. I mean, I feel like what you said earlier, Cindy, totally makes sense. Like, you know, that the performer should be trained to be able to kind of withstand all audiences, and that totally makes sense. And that's true. You do, but usually in the beginning, you have to kind of get used to the audience first, you know? It's like warming up to the audience slowly.
As a performer who also gets like really shaky and nervous, I agree. If I were performing for like a bunch of children and their families, and it was like a more chill kind of vibe going on, I wouldn't mind, like say if there was like two movements that you have to be like connected and they clapped in between, I probably wouldn't mind, like, you know, just giving that up just at that particular place.
If it's a music that's very subtle, that's very thoughtful, it requires you to pay a little bit more attention. And so maybe clapping in between would not be the most appropriate. And sometimes the music itself, right? If you're amazing performer, amazing, musician, you automatically let that, you can carry that with the audiences. Like I'm also thinking about places like where I am now, in a world where classical music is very, very foreign to them. So they wouldn't understand what from left to right. They wouldn't even know who maybe even Mozart is, right? And so for them to come and experience, an artist would come, like for example, when we had Joshua Bell here, and he played he played a violin recital, and you saw audiences clapping in between movements. He didn't mind it. Like he smiled and took it all in and took it with stride. Right. And that's, I think, to me, what great artist is supposed to do. You respond to the reaction of the audience and you go with it and not let the audience impact your playing. Right. So that's what great artists is supposed to be like. Or watching, Long Long play. It's the same thing. He's playing an entire Bach Goldberg variation outdoors in Abu Dhabi. And in between all of it, people are clapping, but he is like so laser focused. He's completely unwavered and unaffected by it. But to me, I also think of it as, this audience is really appreciating. I think of it as like a dress code, right? You go to, in a way, but how much of it can you adjust, right? You're talking to a formal event and they will tell you on the invitation that this is black tie. Right. So what black tie means. Are we strict to that black tie, but are there versions of a black tie that you can wear? And I think that's maybe the same thing. Maybe that's what we can do about the clapping.
So about the dress code, all of my friends we play classical music, we are musicians. So of course we know the dress code of going to a concert. But like recently I was talking to a few of my friends. They are like business major, their majors completely non-music related. And they were like, why can't I just wear like sweatpants to Carnegie Hall? I was like, you can. Like, of course you can do whatever you want. You're not going to be judged. But like, I feel like it's come to a conclusion that I feel like classical music itself, it's a little bit gatekeeping.
Yeah.
I feel like, and also like as a musician ourselves, I'm trying to make it as less gatekeeping as it could be. I'm not being like, oh, how could you wear sweatpants? I'm not going to say like that. You could. But like, I feel like it's just like we got trained growing up that we have to treat it with a certain type of attitude. And it's actually interesting. When I was in college, my professor told me that, you don't wear like puffer jacket because it kind of, when you took it off, it kind of make this little sound. You have to wear like a wool coat. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, that's like the nuance to it. And then like people who don't grow up in this classical music education probably don't get it. They're like, what's the fuss? But like, I do get it, but I feel like it's coming to the point. I feel like we as classical musicians, I'm trying to make it as accessible and as like a normal things to people as possible. Also to the point that I didn't even realize that I was in a
bubble.
Yeah.